Greetings viewers, EricTheCarGuy here. I posted a picture of this thing on my Facebook and people went nuts. And they said, you gotta show us more. So here we are to show you more. Behind me is a 1986 Kenworth. It has a 400 Caterpillar engine. Its transmission, I don't know what type it is, but it's an automatic transmission. And I'm gonna admit right now that I am not an expert when it comes to these things, but I know just enough to be dangerous, and I'll tell you what I do know. You know more than me? Well, I'm sure you do. Go ahead and leave a comment down below and we'll see if we can work it into future stuff. But I'm going to do the best I can to try and stay out of trouble and just point you at the stuff that I know. So first let's start with a walk around. Well, as you can see, this thing is massive. I'd say it's probably 10, 12 feet tall maybe. It's a really nice truck though for its age. Fuel tanks, one on each side. It does have a sleeper. It's got the extra axle back here, and anytime you add an extra axle, it increases your load carrying capability. We'll start with these. Trucks don't ride on traditional springs so much as they ride on airbags many times. Not all of them do that, but some of them do. But the frame rests on these airbags and the rest is connected to the axles under here. And this is really nice. In fact, so many things on a truck run on air pressure, including the brakes. And this is an air brake here. You can get a real good look at it. This is the servo. And the air pressure goes in here. And actually, when there isn't air pressure, is kind of when it activates. That's how the parking brake works. But this level pivots back and forth on an S-cam inside there and causes those brakes to work or not work. Here we've got a nice shot at the back of that transmission. And down over here, that's one of the air tanks, because on trucks, like I said, even the transmission has some pneumatic stuff inside of it. Back here we have our air lines that go to the trailer. This blue and red ones are the air lines, and the black one is the electrical connector. And those you would hook up to a trailer. When you hook it up to this, show me, it's called a fifth wheel. And this is where the trailer hooks up, or load, what have you. But they call that a fifth wheel. And you can see these differentials are pretty massive back here. Very massive. And once again, you can see those air brakes and the air suspension down in here. It's got some pretty crusty old shocks. Heavy duty drive shaft. You got two differentials. You got this one and this one. So both of these axles back here are driven. This axle up front is not driven, but it does have some steering capability, as you can see down in there. It's limited in what it can do, but I'm sure just that little bit makes it so that this tire doesn't hop around while you're making tight turns, things like that. Fuel tank. This is where you step up into it. Under here is where the batteries are. Here's the steering box. So what do you want to see first? You want to see this 400 cat? I know that's what I want to see. Alright, well, to get to it, just flip these back on both sides. This is the air filter, by the way. Massive thing here. It's where it all gets sucked in. And obviously, this is the exhaust. You gotta hold on here. You can stick your foot down in here to get this open, but I can't necessarily do that and open this up at the same time, so I'm gonna give you a long shot while I do that. And under here we find a freshly rebuilt 400 Caterpillar engine. As you can see, the air comes in here, goes into this massive turbo, and is shoved off to an intercooler out in front there. It's that big thing. I'll get a better shot of that when I climb up there. But yeah, it's an intercooled turbo, but that's our turbo. Oil line going to it on the bottom, and one coming out the top. Alternator, exhaust, Like I said, so much of a truck like this works on air pressure. Big fan in there, massive radiator. Looks like we got a couple of drips. Look at that oil filter. It's huge. And this, I believe, will be a fuel filter. Look, it says fuel filter on it. Duh. Another one of those air tanks snuck up under there. Here. But this is what the underside of our massive Caterpillar looks like. Let's go check out the other side. Once again, you've got those air brakes. And this guy here, I believe, is the compressor that's responsible for creating all that air pressure. You see all these lines that come off of it to go to different spots. Here's another fuel filter here. One thing that's really important about diesels is that they have fuel and they're primed up. This is the fuel distributor. Down in here, it sends fuel to each one of these cylinders. Diesels aren't like cars in that they run off of the ignition system. They've got a spark plug that sparks a spark and then initiates combustion. What does it in a diesel is just the heat and pressure created by the compression. Diesels are sometimes run compression ratios 21:1 or more. Got another air filter over on this side. Again, we've got all that piping. Let's see if I can climb up there. Now on top we can get a better look at that turbo and that air intake system. And here's where it comes out of the intercooler over on this side. And there's the intercooler down there in front. Goes down into the intake, which is this guy right here. Into all those cylinders. I believe this is a 6-cylinder, if I'm not mistaken. I think it is. Those big air horns. Got a light bar in the back there. I think this one is set up for hauling heavy things. Hence the extra axle and the light bar. I think that's what this guy is for. Yeah, let's count the injectors. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, it's a 6-cylinder. And then you can sort of barely see the transmission stuff down under there. It's your steering box right here. Right down from the steering wheel in there. Goes down to this link. It's like a drag link type setup. Pulls on that guy right there, and then the force is transferred to the other side via this bar right here. Alright, I know you want to see what's in here. Let's get you a light. Now it's got this cool, like, biker interior. I actually really like this. It does have a sleeper. The stories this mattress could tell, I'm sure. But looking around the cockpit, probably one of the first things you'll notice is the absence of a traditional gear shifter. This girl is an automatic, and as you can see here, and I'm actually told that between this and this, which I believe controls a splitter that you can switch to different levels. Alright, just to try to give you a little more of an idea of what we're looking at here. This switch will switch between, this looks like it's in neutral, and it's basically another transmission on the end of the transmission, which allows it to split the gears, if you will. This is setting 1, setting 2, setting 3, setting 4, so it can split it up to 4 different times, and where it is now is down in neutral. Pretty interesting setup. And the reason you'd have all these gears is because with big heavy loads you want to start off slow. You don't want to put a lot of jerking motion on the load because that causes it to shift. You want to apply a steady force to it and keep it going. Build up its momentum. You don't want to just jerk it along. Alright, under this thing to try to give you a little bit better idea of what I'm on about with this transmission. So here is the main transmission. It's an Allison transmission. And this is where it outputs to a drive shaft. So it's got all its speeds and everything in there. Then there's another drive shaft that goes back to this spicer unit. There's a nice little cooler back there, that kind of thing. That eventually goes back to the back. So this big unit here is like a whole other transmission after the transmission. Hence the reason you have all those gears. But hopefully that gives you a little bit of a better idea of what I was talking about. It's a lot of parts. Big, heavy parts. Big, heavy parts. Here's one of those air tanks again. This is one heck of a transmission filter here. And that front rear axle can go up and down. It sort of articulates up and down, and it doesn't have any active steering to it. It just can steer when it needs to, but it's not like it actually steers the truck. It just sort of pivots from side to side when it needs to. It has those spring-loaded things on it. Between these two things, this truck actually has 40 different gears. This is going to tell you what gear you're in and all that kind of stuff. And as long as we're here, we can just go over some of these gauges. Here's a Jake brakes, and that's like whenever you hear that truck going down the hill and all of a sudden the engine gets louder, they use it for engine braking. And basically it's a set of valves inside the engine that makes it so that the engine itself works as a brake, which helps it slow down even more. Parking brakes, stuff like that down here. As far as the rest of the gauges, we've got lots of them. We've got an axle here. This looks like brake pressure. Just about everything on a truck runs on air pressure. They do it that way. Well, I'm not going to get into a long, complicated explanation about that because honestly, I'd probably come off sounding like an idiot. Brakes work on air pressure. This is the overall air pressure. Fuel level, transmission temp, rear axle. So there's two axles in the back, and they're checking temperatures on both of them back there. Remember, we looked at those. The auxiliary trans temperature. That would be that spicer unit. So it's like two transmissions crammed together, and then the air suspension pressure. This right here is obviously a speedometer. Okay, the pyrometer is exhaust temperature. That gets too hot, that's a bad sign. And I'm sure you're wondering how many miles it has. 731, 720. That's a lot of miles. This is a tachometer, and you'll notice that the farthest it goes up is $3,000. Diesels normally, operate in this 10,000 to 2,000 RPM range because they're low revving, but they make lots and lots of torque. So everything a diesel needs to do with its power that's being made is usually made somewhere in this area. So you don't need to rev it really, really high. More gauges here. We've got the turbo boost gauge, we've got fuel pressure, we've got engine temperature, oil pressure, water temperature, and your volt gauge. And some other assorted indicators up on the dash. Dome lights, engine fan, floodlights, this one had one. Ignition key. This is not a clutch. It's over on the left down here, but this is actually an engine brake. This, I think it's a hydraulic setup. I'm not sure if it's hydraulic or pneumatic, but this basically is a brake on the flywheel of the engine itself to help it slow down. And, come on, and accelerator and brake. And the HVAC. And over here is the engine shut off to pull it off. And this is like a throttle that you can dial in a given amount, which is kind of a cool little feature. And then of course up here we have, this is our horn, and then radio, CB, cool stuff that we have here, and massive glove box. You want me to start it up, don't you? Okay, gotta open the doors first. Really nothing special. Turn the key on, make sure the transmission's in neutral, which it is, and in, and then just turn the key.
Let the air pressure build up before you can do anything with it or drive it around.
But I hope you enjoyed this little walk around the 1986 Kenworth with the 400 Caterpillar in it. I did enjoy it. I'm sorry I don't have more information for you on how that transmission operates. I have driven the type with the actual stick and the high-low switch, that kind of thing, briefly when I was in school. They took us out to a place, and in order to work on these, you got to have your CDL. And I was sort of at that point where get a CDL and pay more money and go through more school, or just get to work. I got to work, worked on cars, the rest is history. But there are plenty of these things on the road. In fact, I call trucks the red blood cells of our economy, mainly because just about everything, including whatever it is you're watching me on right now, the house that you're in, was hauled somewhere by one of these things. They really do. Everything in your life was hauled around by one of these at some point in time. I hope you enjoyed this little walk around and that you got a slightly better understanding of what these trucks are and what they're about. I'm Eric the Car Guy. You can always find me at EricTheCarGuy.com or find me on Facebook and Twitter. And I close with be safe, have fun, and stay dirty, even if you're in a big truck driving down the road. See ya.